Master your emotions or be ruled by them. Introduction. In a world that moves fast, reacts loudly, and rewards emotional chaos, true power belongs to those who master themselves. This book is your guide to taking control of your mind, your emotions, and your life. Every page, every chapter, and every idea is designed to train you to pause, observe, and act with deliberate discipline. You will learn to quiet the noise, withstand pressure, and build unshakable composure. By the end, you will understand that mastery is not about avoiding emotions, it's about commanding them every single day. Every time you react emotionally, you give something away. Power, control, position. That's the truth most people refuse to face, and it's costing them their lives. An emotional reaction is never neutral. It is a transfer of power from you to whatever triggered you. A comment, a delay, a look, a tone. You felt something, and you obeyed it. That's not strength, that's conditioning. Here's the rule you must burn into your mind. Whoever reacts first loses. That's the key. When you react emotionally, you are no longer choosing, you are being chosen for. Your words speed up, your tone shifts, your body tightens, and suddenly you are no longer in control of yourself. You have a choice, always. But emotional people never see it because emotions demand urgency. They say, respond now. They say, defend yourself. They say, prove something. And the moment you obey, you lose power. Look around the world. Most arguments start because someone reacted. Most careers stall because someone reacted. Most relationships break because someone reacted. Not because the situation was impossible, but because the person was undisciplined. It's not about anger. It's not about stress. It's not about sensitivity. It's about discipline. Powerful people are not emotionless. They are controlled. They feel everything, but they don't hand the steering wheel to every feeling that shows up. You don't need their permission to stay calm. You don't need their approval to pause. You don't need to explain yourself to maintain control. That's the difference. An emotional reaction feels good in the moment, but it costs you later. A calm response feels uncomfortable now, but it pays you back with interest. That's the trade most people refuse to make. Let me be clear. If someone can trigger you, they can control you. If someone can rush you, they can manipulate you. If someone can provoke you, they own you, temporarily or permanently. That's not philosophy, that's reality. Think about the last time you reacted. Not responded, reacted. You didn't feel powerful afterward. You felt drained, embarrassed, regretful. Because deep down, you knew you gave away something valuable. You have a choice. Here is where discipline begins. Not in silence, not in meditation, not in isolation, but in friction, in moments that poke you, challenge you, disrespect you. That's where power is either built or lost. The disciplined person does one thing differently. They pause, not forever, just long enough to break the emotional command. Pause, breathe, observe. That's the sequence. Say it again. Pause, breathe, observe. That pause is not weakness. It is dominance. Because in that pause, you decide instead of react. You choose instead of obey. You remain centered while others spiral. And people feel that. They may not understand it, but they feel it. Calm unsettles emotional people. Silence intimidates reactive minds. Why? Because they expected control and they didn't get it. You didn't explode. You didn't defend. You didn't explain. You stayed grounded. That's the key. Here's what you must stop doing immediately. Stop reacting to tone instead of content. Stop replying when your heart rate is high. Stop speaking just to release pressure. That's not communication, that's leakage. And every emotional leak weakens your position. Instead, do this. When triggered, delay your response. Seconds matter. Minutes are better. Time restores power. You don't need to win every moment. You need to control yourself in every moment. That's the real victory. Understand this. People don't respect emotional explosions. They tolerate them until they don't. But controlled individuals, they are trusted, promoted, listened to, because they are predictable under pressure. And predictability under pressure equals power. You have a choice. The next time something provokes you, don't ask, "How do I respond?" Ask, "Why do I feel rushed to respond?" That question alone breaks the spell. Remember, it's not about being right. It's not about being loud. It's not about being seen. It's about staying in control. Because the fastest way to lose power is not failure, it's emotional reaction. You are not here to be triggered. You are here to be disciplined. And discipline starts with this truth. Your emotions work for you, not the other way around. Hold that line, because once you stop reacting, something changes. People hesitate, situations slow down, options appear. And power returns to where it belongs, with you. You've learned how reactions steal power. Now it's time to learn the deeper truth. Most reactions aren't accidental, they're conditioned. You mastered awareness. Now let's expose the programming. Chapter 2. You were conditioned to react, not to think. You were not born reactive. You were trained to be. That matters because what was trained can be untrained. From a young age, you were rewarded for quick reactions. Speak up fast, respond immediately, defend yourself, explain yourself. No one taught you how to pause. No one taught you how to sit with discomfort. No one taught you how to think under pressure. They taught you how to feel, not how to decide. That's the problem. Modern society doesn't value emotional control. It values emotional display. Outrage gets attention. Impulse gets applause. Reaction gets engagement. And slowly, without you noticing, your nervous system was programmed for speed, not clarity. That's the key. You were conditioned to react before you think, and every system around you reinforces it. Social media rewards instant opinions. Work culture rewards immediate replies. Relationships reward emotional expression over emotional discipline. So when something triggers you, your body already knows what to do. Tighten, rush, respond. But here's the truth most people never question. Fast does not mean right. You have a choice. Conditioning feels natural because it's familiar. But familiar does not mean effective. Think about it. When you react emotionally, are you usually proud of the result? Or do you later think, "I should have handled that differently"? That gap between impulse and regret is proof of conditioning. You didn't choose that reaction. It chose you. You don't need their permission to slow down. You don't need approval to pause. You don't need validation to think first. But conditioning makes slowing down feel dangerous. It whispers, "If you don't respond now, you lose." That's a lie. In reality, reacting quickly is how you lose. Look closely at your habits. Do you check messages immediately? Do you feel anxious when you don't reply fast? Do you feel pressure to explain yourself? That's not urgency, that's training, and training can be reversed. It's not about intelligence, it's not about personality, it's not about confidence, it's not about emotion, it's about discipline. Disciplined thinkers do not eliminate emotions, they delay obedience to them. That delay is everything. Here's the exercise you must start using immediately. When an emotion rises, label it instead of acting on it.
This is anger. This is fear. This is ego. Naming creates distance. Distance restores choice. That's the key. Emotions lose power when they are observed instead of obeyed. But conditioning fights back. It makes stillness feel uncomfortable. It makes silence feel like weakness. That's intentional. A reactive population is easier to control. A thoughtful individual is harder to manipulate. That's why everything pushes speed. Speed keeps you shallow. Speed keeps you predictable. Depth requires slowness. You have a choice. The moment you feel rushed, stop. Rushing is a signal, not a command.
Ask yourself, who benefits if I react right now? Usually, not you. Here's what disciplined thinkers do differently. They do not trust their first emotional impulse. They trust patterns. They trust consequences. They know feelings change, decisions remain. So they wait. Waiting is not avoidance. Waiting is strategy. You don't need their permission to take time. You don't need to justify your pause. You don't owe instant access to your emotions. That belief alone will change how people treat you. Because when you stop reacting, others slow down. Others become careful. Others reveal themselves. Reactive people expose nothing but weakness. Controlled people gather information. That's the difference. You were conditioned to believe thinking is slow, but thinking is precise. Reaction feels powerful in the moment, but it collapses later. Thinking feels uncomfortable now, but it builds leverage, and leverage is power. Here's what you must stop doing. Stop treating emotions as orders. Stop assuming urgency is real. Stop confusing expression with strength. Expression without control is noise. Instead, train this habit. Delay responses by default. Even a few seconds retrains the nervous system. Seconds become minutes. Minutes become composure. Composure becomes identity, and identity changes everything. Remember, you were trained to react, but you can train yourself to think. That training happens daily, in small moments, when no one is watching, when you don't reply immediately, when you don't explain yourself, when you don't chase resolution emotionally. Those moments are reps, and reps build discipline. You have a choice. You can continue living on emotional autopilot, or you can take back control of your inner world. Because once you break conditioning, you stop being predictable. You stop being rushed. You stop being controlled. And something powerful replaces it. Clarity. You now see the programming. You now recognize the pattern. But awareness alone is not enough. Next, you must master the single skill that interrupts every reaction: the pause. You've seen the conditioning. Now it's time to install control. Chapter 3. The pause is the skill that changes everything. One skill that separates controlled people from reactive people. One skill that interrupts anger, fear, ego, and impulse. One skill that gives you power back instantly. That skill is the pause. Not silence forever, not avoidance, not weakness. The pause, a brief moment where you do nothing and regain everything. That's the key. Most people think power comes from action, from speaking, from responding, from moving fast. They're wrong. Power comes from delayed action, from restraint, from choosing timing. You have a choice. The pause is the moment where choice becomes possible. Without it, you are on autopilot. With it, you are in control. Every emotional reaction skips the pause. That's why it feels urgent. That's why it feels uncontrollable. But urgency is not truth, it's pressure. And pressure is designed to rush you into mistakes. Understand this clearly. If you can pause, you can win. Not every argument, not every situation, but you always win control. And control is the foundation of everything else. Most people don't pause because it feels uncomfortable. Silence creates tension. Stillness creates anxiety. Why?
Because the mind is addicted to release, to saying something, to doing something. The pause denies that release. That's why it's powerful. You don't need their permission to pause. You don't need approval to stay quiet. You don't need to explain why you didn't react. The pause belongs to you. Here's what happens when you pause. Your heart rate slows. Your breathing stabilizes. Your nervous system steps out of threat mode. And suddenly, you can think again. That's the key. Thinking requires space. Reactions destroy space. So here is the discipline you must train. When triggered, do nothing first.
Not later. First. Pause your mouth. Pause your hands. Pause your response. Even 2 seconds changes the outcome. Seconds matter. Most damage is done in the first 5 seconds of emotion. That's where regret is born. So your job is simple. Protect those seconds. You have a choice. The pause is not passive, it is active control. While others rush, you observe. While others spill emotion, you gather information. While others expose weakness, you build leverage. That's the difference. Let's be practical. Next time you feel triggered, don't ask, "What should I say?" Ask, "Why do I feel pressure to speak right now?" That question creates space, and space creates power. Here's another rule. Never respond when your body is tense. Tension means emotion is driving. Emotion does not see consequences, so wait. Relax your jaw. Slow your breath. Lower your shoulders. Your body must calm before your words can be trusted. That's discipline. It's not about being calm all the time. It's about knowing when not to act. It's not about speed. It's about control. Most people fear the pause because they think silence makes them lose status. But silence does the opposite. Silence forces others to fill the gap. Silence makes people uncomfortable. Silence reveals intentions. Reactive people talk to relieve pressure. Disciplined people wait to gain clarity. That's the key. The pause makes you unpredictable, and unpredictability under control is power. People cannot manipulate what they cannot read. So stop narrating your emotions. Stop explaining your reactions. Stop justifying your timing. You don't need their permission. Here's a training drill. When you receive a message that triggers you, don't reply immediately. Read it, close it, breathe. Come back later. Notice how the emotional charge fades. Notice how clarity replaces urgency. That's proof the pause works. Emotions peak fast and fade fast, but decisions made during peaks stay permanent. So, delay decisions. Delay is not avoidance. Delay is intelligence. You have a choice. The pause also protects your identity. Every reaction reinforces a version of you, an impulsive you, a defensive you, an emotional you. But every pause builds a different identity, a controlled one, a disciplined one, a respected one. Identity is built in moments like these, not in motivation, not in theory, in friction.
That's why the pause feels hard. Hard things build strength. Easy reactions build weakness. Remember, the pause is where you separate from the crowd. The pause is where leadership begins. The pause is where emotional mastery becomes real. You don't need to win every moment. You need to control yourself in every moment. That's the standard. Say it again. Pause, breathe, observe. Pause, breathe, observe. Make that automatic. Because once you master the pause, you stop reacting. You stop being rushed. You stop being controlled. And something new takes its place. Calm authority. You now understand the skill that interrupts every emotional reaction. But control doesn't end with pausing. It deepens with composure. You've learned how to stop reacting. Now it's time to understand why calm itself is power. Chapter 4. Calm is not weakness, it is dominance. Most people misunderstand calm. They think calm means passive. They think calm means soft. They think calm means unsure. They are wrong. Calm is not weakness. Calm is dominance. That's the key. When pressure rises, the emotional person speeds up. Their voice tightens. Their words spill. Their body reveals everything. But the calm person slows down. They breathe. They watch. They choose. And in that contrast, power becomes obvious. You have a choice. In any tense moment, you can join the chaos or you can stand above it. Standing above it feels unnatural at first, because you were trained to equate emotion with strength. Loud equals confident. Fast equals capable. Aggressive equals powerful. That conditioning is wrong. Real power is restraint. Think about it. Who controls a room? The loudest person? Or the one who speaks last and ends the discussion? That's the key. Calm is not the absence of emotion. Calm is emotion under command. Controlled people feel anger. They feel pressure. They feel disrespect. They just don't advertise it. You don't need their permission to stay composed. You don't need approval to slow your pace. You don't need validation to lower your voice. Lowering your intensity raises your authority. Here's the truth most people never learn. Emotional volatility signals insecurity. When someone explodes, explains, or overreacts, they reveal they need the moment to go their way. Calm reveals the opposite. It says, I'm not threatened. I'm not rushed. I'm not dependent on this outcome. That message is dominance. That's why calm unsettles people. Reactive minds rely on emotional feedback. When you don't give it, they lose balance. They push harder. They test. They provoke. And every time you remain calm, your position strengthens. You have a choice. Calm must be practiced, not performed. You cannot fake it under pressure. That's why discipline matters. It's not about confidence, it's about control. Here's what you must stop doing.
Stop raising your voice to be heard. Stop speeding up to keep up. Stop matching emotional energy. Matching energy is submission. Instead, set the tone. Slow your speech. Reduce your words. Relax your face. Your body communicates before your mouth ever does. That's the key. When your body is calm, your words land heavier. Few words, clear tone, no rush. That combination commands attention. In tense conversations, speak 20% slower than normal. It feels uncomfortable. It feels exposed. Do it anyway. Slowness projects certainty. Speed projects anxiety. You don't need their permission to take space. You don't owe speed to anyone. Calm also protects your decision-making. Emotional intensity narrows vision. Calm expands it. When you are calm, you see options. You hear subtext. You recognize manipulation. That's dominance in motion. Most people think dominance is force. It's not. Dominance is control of the frame, and calm controls the frame. Notice leaders under pressure. Notice negotiators. Notice experienced professionals. They don't rush. They don't react. They don't over-explain. They wait. Waiting signals leverage. Here's another discipline. Never explain yourself emotionally. Explanation fueled by emotion is begging for understanding. You don't need their permission to be understood. State facts, set boundaries, then stop. Silence after clarity is powerful. That silence forces others to process. It shifts pressure outward. That's the key. Calm also disarms provocation. Provocation needs reaction to survive. Without reaction, it collapses. When someone tries to pull you into drama, your calm denies them fuel. No fuel, no fire. That's control. But understand this. Calm does not mean avoidance. Calm does not mean submission. Calm means you choose when to engage. Engagement on your terms is power. You have a choice. Every time you feel intensity rising, ask yourself, what would calm dominance look like here? Then do that. Calm is trained in small moments, waiting before speaking, breathing before responding, observing before deciding. Those are reps, and reps build composure. Composure builds reputation. People remember how you behave under pressure, not what you say when things are easy. That's why calm earns respect quietly. No announcements, no displays, no drama. Just consistency. Remember, you don't rise to the moment, you fall to your training. Train calm, because calm keeps you unbothered. Calm keeps you strategic. Calm keeps you ahead. You've learned how the pause creates control. Now you understand why calm multiplies it. But there's another level. True mastery is not just calm behavior. It's separating who you are from what you feel. You've controlled the moment. Now it's time to control identification itself. Chapter 5. Stop identifying with every thought and feeling. Most people don't suffer because of what happens to them. They suffer because they identify with everything they think and feel. That's the real trap. A thought appears and they become it. An emotion rises and they obey it. A feeling passes and they call it truth. That identification is where control is lost. That's the key. You are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are the one observing them. But no one taught you that. You were trained to fuse with your inner noise, to believe every feeling is a command, to assume every thought deserves action. That conditioning keeps you reactive. You have a choice. Thoughts are automatic, feelings are automatic, but obedience is optional. Most people never separate the two. They feel anger, so they act angry. They feel fear, so they retreat. They feel insulted, so they defend. That's not awareness, that's attachment, and attachment kills discipline. It's not about emotion, it's about control. Let me be clear. A thought is not a fact. A feeling is not a verdict. They are signals, nothing more. Signals can be observed. Commands must be obeyed. Your job is to downgrade emotions from commands to signals. That's the key. Here's what identification sounds like. I am angry. I am anxious. I am offended. That language is dangerous. It locks you into the state. Replace it with this. Anger is present. Anxiety is present. Ego is present. That small shift creates distance. Distance restores power. You don't need their permission to observe yourself. You don't need approval to detach. You don't need validation to stay neutral internally. Detachment is not coldness. Detachment is clarity. When you identify with a thought, you stop questioning it. When you observe it, you regain choice. You have a choice. Here's a hard truth. Most of your thoughts are recycled nonsense. Old fears, old stories, old assumptions. If every thought were true, your life would be chaos. So stop treating them like orders. Here's the discipline you must train. When a thought appears, do not respond immediately. Watch it. Label it. Let it pass. Most thoughts dissolve when ignored. That's the key. Emotions behave the same way. They rise, they peak, they fall. But when you identify with them, you extend them, you feed them, you make them last. Stop feeding them. Emotion wants attention. Starve it of obedience. This is not suppression, this is command. Suppression hides emotion. Command observes it without acting. There's a difference. You don't need their permission to feel without reacting. You don't need to explain your internal state. Silence inside is power. Here's a real-world instruction. When emotion spikes, say internally, noted. Nothing else. No story, no justification, no action. Just noted. That single word reminds you who's in charge. That's the key. Most people think self-control means forcing positivity. Wrong. Self-control means allowing emotion without surrendering to it. You can feel anger without expressing it. You can feel fear without running. You can feel insult without defending. That's mastery. Identity is the deepest level of discipline. Every time you act from emotion, you reinforce the identity of a reactive person. Every time you observe without acting, you reinforce the identity of a disciplined one. Identity compounds. You are training yourself every day, whether you realize it or not. You have a choice. Stop saying, "That's just how I am." That's not honesty. That's laziness. You are how you practice. And practice happens in small moments. When you don't reply emotionally, when you don't explain yourself, when you don't chase relief. Those moments are reps, and reps build separation. Separation builds freedom. Freedom is not doing whatever you feel. Freedom is not being controlled by what you feel. That's the key. Here's another rule. Never make decisions in emotional peaks. Peaks distort judgment. Delay, observe, decide later. You don't need their permission to take time. Time exposes whether a feeling is wisdom or noise. Most feelings fail the time test. Let them. Remember, you are not the storm. You are the sky. Storms pass. The sky remains. That image matters because it trains detachment. Detachment gives you space. Space gives you choice. Choice gives you power. You now understand why emotional control deepens at the level of identity. You are no longer fused with every thought and feeling. But awareness alone is not enough. Discipline is forged in action, in friction, in daily resistance. You've separated from emotion internally. Now it's time to apply control externally, in everyday behavior. Chapter 6. Emotional discipline is built through daily friction. Emotional discipline is not built in calm moments. It is built in friction. That's the truth most people avoid. You don't build control when life is easy. You build it when something irritates you, provokes you, tests you. Daily friction is the training ground. That's the key. Most people wait for motivation. They wait for peace. They wait for perfect conditions. And while they wait, they stay weak. You have a choice. Friction is not a problem. Friction is the practice. Every small irritation is a rep. Every urge to react is a test. And most people fail those tests, not because they are incapable, but because they never treat them as training. They treat them as personal attacks. That's the mistake. It's not about irritation, it's about discipline. Daily life gives you endless chances to train emotional control. Slow drivers, late replies, disrespectful tone, unmet expectations. These moments are not interruptions, they are invitations. Invitations to practice restraint. That's the key. Emotional discipline is not dramatic. It's quiet, boring, repetitive, and that's why it works. You don't need their permission to stay composed. You don't need validation to resist reacting. You don't need applause for controlling yourself. Control is its own reward. Here's what most people do wrong. They only try to be disciplined during big moments. Major arguments, serious confrontations, high-pressure situations. But discipline doesn't show up on demand. It shows up when trained. And training happens in small moments. That's the key. If you can't control yourself when mildly irritated, you won't control yourself when it really matters. So stop waiting for big tests. Use the small ones. Here's the rule. Every urge to react is an opportunity to train restraint. Every time you feel the impulse to reply quickly, pause.
Every time you want to explain, stop. Every time you feel offended, observe. Those are reps. You have a choice. Most people burn energy trying to eliminate friction. They complain, they avoid, they blame. Disciplined people use friction. They don't ask, "Why is this happening to me?" They ask, "How can I train control here?" That shift changes everything. Here's a daily practice you must adopt. Intentionally delay minor reactions, not forever, just long enough to feel the urge and not obey it. That discomfort is the workout. That's the key. Discomfort is not danger, it's resistance. And resistance builds strength. When you don't react immediately, your nervous system learns a new pattern. It learns, I don't have to obey impulses. That lesson compounds, day by day, moment by moment. You don't need their permission to change your habits. Another rule: do not release emotion just to feel better. Relief is temporary. Control is permanent. Most people react because they want relief. They want the pressure gone. They want the feeling out. But relief weakens discipline. That's the key. Emotional discipline means tolerating discomfort without escaping it.
You feel the urge, you feel the tension, you stay composed anyway. That's mastery. Let's be practical. When someone annoys you, do not correct immediately. Wait. When someone misunderstands you, do not rush to clarify. Pause. When something doesn't go your way, do not complain. Observe. These small acts train emotional muscle, and emotional muscle decides how you behave under real pressure. You have a choice. Here's another truth. Discipline is built when no one is watching. Public calm is easy. Private restraint is hard. That's where identity is formed. When you don't vent, when you don't rant internally, when you don't replay the offense, those silent choices shape you. It's not about expression, it's about discipline. Most people think expressing emotions makes them honest. It doesn't. It makes them predictable. Predictability is weakness. Controlled people are harder to read, harder to manipulate, harder to provoke. That's power. Friction also reveals your weak spots. Notice what triggers you fastest. Notice what makes you defensive. Notice where you lose control. Those are training targets, not flaws to hide, skills to strengthen. That's the key. Instead of avoiding triggers, use them intentionally. When you feel triggered, say internally, "This is training." That single phrase reframes the moment. It turns irritation into opportunity. You don't need their permission to grow stronger. Here's another discipline. Reduce unnecessary emotional input. Stop consuming outrage. Stop replaying drama. Stop feeding emotional loops. You can't train discipline while constantly overstimulating your emotions. Choose your inputs. Calm inputs build calm responses. That's the key. Remember, emotional discipline is not built by understanding. It is built by repetition. Doing the same small restraint again and again. Most people quit because progress feels invisible, but control compounds quietly. One day, you realize something changed. Things that used to trigger you, don't. Situations that used to rush you, slow down. People that used to control you, lose leverage. That's the payoff. You have a choice. Use daily friction to train weakness, or use it to build strength. Because friction is guaranteed. Life will keep pressing. The question is, what are you becoming under pressure? You've learned how to detach from emotion. You've learned how to pause. You've learned how to stay calm. Now you understand where discipline is truly built, in daily resistance. But there is one external behavior that multiplies all of this control. One habit that protects your power more than words ever could. You've trained internally. Now it's time to discipline what you express. Chapter 7. Silence is a form of emotional control. Silence is underrated. Most people see it as weakness. They think silence is submission. They believe silence is indecision. They are wrong. Silence is power. Silence is control. Silence is dominance. That's the key. Every word you speak is energy. Every explanation you give leaks power. Every defense you offer is fuel for manipulation. Most people don't realize it. They think talking makes them strong. They think defending proves their point. They think reacting shows courage. All of it is false. You have a choice.
You can feed the noise around you, or you can control your output. Controlled silence is a weapon. It disarms provocation. It frustrates manipulation. It forces others to reveal themselves. That's the key. Most people cannot stay silent under pressure. They panic, they explain, they justify. And in that panic, power shifts away from them. You don't need their permission to withhold words. You don't need approval to pause communication. You don't need to explain yourself to remain in control. Silence speaks louder than words ever can. Here's how it works. When someone provokes you, they want a reaction. They want emotion. They want chaos. Give them nothing. Observe. Breathe. Stay quiet. Not because you are afraid. Not because you are weak. Because you are disciplined. That's the key. Silence under pressure signals that you are untouchable. People may not understand it, but they feel it. Their attempts to control you fail. Their urgency slows down. Their leverage disappears. You have a choice. It's not about being passive. It's not about hiding. It's not about avoidance. It's not about emotion. It's about discipline. Most people overestimate the power of words. They think speaking proves their strength. It rarely does. Silence proves more. Silence allows you to gather information. Silence allows you to read intentions. Silence allows you to respond from strategy rather than impulse. And response from strategy always wins. Here's a practical rule. When insulted, stay quiet first. When criticized unfairly, do not reply immediately. When provoked, do not escalate. Let the silence do the work. You have a choice. Repetition is required here. Every time you resist explaining yourself, you reinforce control. Every time you resist reacting emotionally, you strengthen identity. Every time you choose silence over noise, you prove discipline. That's the key. Many people fear silence because it feels like loss of control. They confuse the absence of words with absence of influence. Wrong. Influence is stronger when it is quiet. Influence is stronger when it is calm. Influence is stronger when it is intentional. Think about leaders you respect. Notice how often they speak. Notice how often they remain quiet. They choose words like weapons, not like noise. That's the key. Here's a challenge most people ignore. They speak to release tension. They talk to assert themselves. They explain to justify their existence. Stop that. Silence is not passive. Silence is active control. Every time you stay silent, you are training discipline. Every time you resist the urge to justify, you are building identity. Every time you observe without responding, you are reclaiming power. You have a choice. Practical drill. The next time someone challenges you emotionally, respond silently. Breathe. Watch. Observe the situation. Delay response until clarity arrives. You don't need to explain your silence. You don't owe understanding. You don't need permission to control the narrative of your life. That's the key. Silence also protects your energy. Words are energy. Reactions cost energy. Impulse leaks energy.
When you remain quiet, energy is preserved, clarity is gained. Leverage is created. That's power few people understand. Most people make the mistake of equating verbal expression with emotional release. It's not. It's submission. It's surrendering control. You have a choice. True discipline is doing what feels uncomfortable, saying nothing when the world expects reaction, observing when the world demands opinion, waiting when the world pushes urgency. That's the key. Silence also reshapes perception. Others begin to notice you are not easily manipulated. Others begin to respect your control. Others begin to hesitate before provoking. You now occupy space they cannot influence. Here's another truth. Silence is not just external. Internal silence matters too. Do not repeat offenses in your mind. Do not narrate emotional responses internally. Do not obsess over perceived slights. Internal silence trains your nervous system. External silence reinforces discipline. Combine both, and nothing can provoke you without your consent. That's the key. Discipline built through silence is cumulative. Every instance compounds. Every resisted impulse adds to your authority. Every moment of composure builds unshakable identity. You have a choice. Do you feed the noise, or do you control it? Do you react impulsively, or do you respond intentionally? Do you surrender your energy to chaos, or do you reclaim it quietly? Silence is your weapon, your shield, your leverage. Use it deliberately. Use it consistently. Use it without apology. That's mastery. You've learned how the pause creates choice. You've learned how calm multiplies control. Now you see why disciplined silence dominates interaction. But silence alone is not enough. It must be coupled with awareness of pressure. It must be practiced daily. It must be applied strategically. You mastered internal control. You mastered restraint. Now it's time to apply it externally, in the way you engage with the world. Chapter 8. Pressure reveals the mind you've built. Pressure is not the enemy. Pressure is the test. Pressure exposes everything. That's the key. When life pushes, your mind responds. When situations get intense, your emotions surface. When expectations rise, your character shows. Pressure doesn't create weakness, it uncovers it. And it doesn't create strength either, it exposes it. You have a choice. You can let pressure dominate you. You can let it force reactive behavior. You can let it trigger anxiety, anger, or fear. Or you can let pressure reveal the discipline you've built. That's the key. Most people fail under pressure. Why? Because they never trained for it. Because they never paused. Because they never observed. They built reactive habits. They fused with every thought. They obeyed every impulse. And now, when life demands composure, they crumble. You have a choice. Pressure is not an interruption. Pressure is a spotlight. It shows whether the work you've done on yourself actually matters. Every moment of pause, every moment of silence, every moment of restraint, all of it compounds, and pressure exposes it. Here's the truth few admit. People rarely fail when life is easy. They fail when life is uncomfortable. They fail when stakes are high. They fail when emotions surge. That's when discipline is forged. That's when identity is tested. That's when your mind either dominates the moment or becomes dominated by it. You have a choice. Most people react to pressure. They blame circumstances. They blame others. They blame themselves. Reactive people see pressure as a threat. Disciplined people see pressure as a mirror. It shows what is built and what still needs construction.
Here's the rule. When you feel tension rising, do not panic. Do not justify. Do not react. Pause. Observe. Label the feeling. You have a choice. Your mind may scream. Your body may tighten. Your ego may demand action. Ignore it all. Focus on your training. Focus on your discipline. Focus on your principles. That's the key. Pressure reveals the mind you've built, not the mind you wish you had. So what kind of mind have you built? Reactive, emotional, frustrated, or disciplined, calm, and strategic? Ask yourself honestly. Here's a practical method. When pressure rises, take one controlled breath, then another, then assess before acting. Most people act first, think never. Discipline acts second, think first. You have a choice. Every pressure situation is an opportunity to reinforce control, an opportunity to prove mastery, an opportunity to strengthen identity. Most people see it as risk. Disciplined people see it as training. That's the key. Here's another truth. Pressure doesn't only reveal weakness externally, it reveals it internally. Your thoughts under pressure become obvious. Your tendencies under pressure become obvious. Your emotional triggers under pressure become obvious. Observation under pressure is power. Notice where your mind wants to react. Notice where your body wants to act impulsively. Notice where your ego wants validation. Those are the weak spots. Those are the areas to reinforce. You have a choice. Pressure can break you. Pressure can teach you. Pressure can accelerate your growth. It depends on what you do in the moment. Let me be blunt. Most people fail not because they lack intelligence, not because they lack skill, not because they lack resources. They fail because they never controlled themselves under fire. It's not about circumstance, it's about discipline. The mind you've built shows up under fire. If your mind is reactive, pressure dominates you. If your mind is disciplined, pressure becomes your proving ground. You have a choice. Here's a real-world behavioral instruction. Next time a high-pressure situation arises, do not react immediately. Do not justify your position. Do not allow ego to dictate your words or actions. Pause. Breathe. Observe. Ask yourself, what would a disciplined mind do here? Then act from that space. Even small decisions matter. Every choice under pressure reinforces your identity. Every pause under tension reinforces your composure. That's the key. Another truth. Pressure is inevitable. Life will always push. Expectations will always rise. Problems will always appear. The question is not whether you will face pressure. The question is, how will your mind respond when it does? Reactive, impulsive, overwhelmed, or calm, disciplined, strategic? You have a choice. The mind you've built determines everything. How you react under pressure decides outcomes. How you pause under tension decides reputation. How you stay silent under provocation decides influence. Pressure magnifies everything. If you trained discipline, it shows. If you neglected it, it shows. That's why small, consistent habits matter. The pauses, the silence, the delayed reactions, the observation. They compound into mental armor. You have a choice. Do not fear pressure. Do not resist it. Do not avoid it. Use it, observe it, leverage it. Because pressure is the final test of everything you've learned. The mind you've built under calm, under friction, under silence, now meets its proving ground. Will you crumble or will you rise? That is determined in the moment, not in theory. You mastered internal discipline, you mastered silence, you mastered daily friction. Now you see pressure as the ultimate mirror. The mind you've built is revealed here, and the outcome depends entirely on you.
Chapter 9. Emotional mastery is a daily decision. Emotional mastery is not a one-time event. It is not achieved by reading a book. It is not achieved by hearing advice once. It is a daily decision. That's the key. Every morning, every interaction, every challenge, you are deciding. You can let emotion drive you, or you can decide to control it. You have a choice. Most people think mastery happens automatically. They think awareness is enough. They think one moment of control will last forever. It doesn't. Discipline fades without repetition. Calm erodes without practice. Silence loses power without application. You have a choice. Emotional mastery requires consistent action. It is forged in the small decisions. The decision to pause. The decision to breathe. The decision not to react immediately. Those moments are the foundation. Ignore them, and nothing else matters. That's the key. Here's what daily mastery looks like. You wake up and decide not to let your first thoughts control your day. You notice frustration when traffic slows, and you pause instead of exploding. You receive criticism, and you breathe instead of defending. These are small, repeated choices, but repetition creates strength. Repetition creates identity. Repetition builds control that becomes instinctive. You have a choice. Most people abandon control when life gets uncomfortable. Pressure hits, expectations rise, disruption appears, and they react automatically. They yell, they blame, they panic. That is weakness. It's not about circumstance, it's about discipline. Emotional mastery is not a goal, it is a process. It is the act of choosing calm when chaos surrounds you. It is the act of observing when emotion demands action. It is the act of controlling what you can, your response, and ignoring what you cannot, others' behavior. You have a choice. Here's a truth few people accept. Mastery is boring.
It is repetitive. It is invisible to others. But that is where the work happens. Quiet moments build quiet strength. Small decisions multiply into unstoppable momentum. Your identity is forged piece by piece, day by day. That's the key. Emotional mastery is reinforced by accountability to yourself. Check your reactions daily. Ask yourself, did I pause? Did I resist overreacting? Did I act from calm or from ego? Be ruthless with honesty. No excuses, no justifications. You have a choice.
Most people wait for external feedback to validate their discipline. They seek praise for composure. They want recognition for patience. That is weakness. You don't need their permission to master yourself. You don't need approval to pause. You don't need applause to act with restraint. Internal mastery is private. It is quiet. It is deliberate. Here's a practical strategy. Start every day with a mental check-in. Ask, where will I be tested today? Identify moments where you tend to react. Plan to respond differently. That's the key. Daily practice is not limited to moments of obvious stress.
It includes small irritations, minor frustrations, every situation where emotion wants to take the wheel. They are opportunities to train. They are reps for your mental muscles. You have a choice. Another rule: observe your internal dialogue. Notice when thoughts escalate fear, anger, or frustration. Do not obey them immediately. Label them instead. This is emotion. This is a thought. I will choose my response. That small internal pause compounds. It creates clarity. It creates composure. It builds the mind of a master. That's the key. Emotional mastery also requires detachment. Detachment does not mean apathy.
Detachment does not mean coldness. Detachment means separating yourself from reactive impulses. It means understanding that not every thought is truth. Not every feeling is command. Not every situation deserves surrender. You have a choice. Here's the truth. You will be tested every day. Life will present triggers. People will provoke you. Circumstances will challenge you. Daily mastery is the difference between being dominated and dominating the moment. Daily mastery is the difference between regret and control. Daily mastery is the difference between chaos and calm authority. You have a choice. Consistency is non-negotiable. Even one day of surrender weakens the mind. Even one moment of overreaction reinforces old habits. You must choose control every day, every moment, every interaction. That's the key. Discipline compounds quietly. Every decision to pause multiplies your authority. Every decision to observe strengthens identity. Every decision to stay calm builds unshakable control. You have a choice. Mastery is not dramatic. It is repetitive. It is invisible. It is daily. The people who succeed are not those who excel under pressure once. They are those who make disciplined choice a habit, a lifestyle, a standard. Here's the final instruction. Choose control consciously. Choose calm deliberately. Choose silence strategically. Choose discipline relentlessly. Even when no one is watching, even when reward seems distant, even when pressure rises, you have a choice. Every day, every decision, every reaction, you are either building mastery or reinforcing weakness. That is your responsibility. That is your power. That is your freedom. You've learned to pause. You've learned to stay calm. You've learned to detach. You've learned to leverage silence. You've learned to withstand pressure. Now you see clearly. Emotional mastery is not a destination. It is a path, a daily decision, a deliberate commitment to yourself. You have a choice. Choose mastery. Choose discipline. Choose control. Choose identity. Because the alternative is being ruled by every thought, every feeling, every external push, and that is not who you are. You are the master of your mind. You are the observer of your emotion. You are the one who decides, not circumstance, not people, not impulse. You have a choice, daily, deliberate, relentless. You mastered control internally. You mastered calm externally. You mastered response under pressure. Now you take everything you've built and make it permanent. This is your life. This is your discipline. Choose mastery every single day. Conclusion. Emotional mastery is not a destination, it is a daily commitment. The principles in this book are simple, but they demand consistency, courage, and relentless practice. You have the tools to pause before reaction, to harness silence, and to thrive under pressure. You now understand that every thought, every feeling, and every moment is an opportunity to build your identity, your discipline, and your freedom. Choose wisely, act deliberately, and never surrender your mind to chaos. Your life is yours to command, and it starts with the decision you make today.
Most people react. Few control. Subscribe if you choose control.